I heard about, well, we all saw the news from the Philippines about the, he's going to press the button.
Try, hold on, I'm trying to get it to come on here and there. So,
we need the army.
there we go.
Simon, show me the video.
Oh, it's on now.
It's on now.
Oh,
There we
That's
go.
it.
yeah, we're
Right,
there.
so what I'm going to be doing at the back end of June, so the purpose of my talk today is to get a few more people to step forward and help me to raise money for the project, which I'll tell you what it's about in a minute. But we're doing the Dragon Boat Challenge, which is going to be on the 28th of June at Dorney Lake. Okay, so Dorney Lake is going to be a dragon boat race. We have 15 people in a crew. Best of are putting a crew together. A few other people are. There'll be 32 boats on the pond, so it's a bloody good day out. We all joined in 3 races, so each crew of 15 is part of 3 races. 11 in the boat at any given time. So that means that the super fit guys can do all 3 races, and those that carry a few extra pounds, they can, you know, do 2 races. But it's just a really good day out. There's entertainment for the kids there, there's everything going on. It's all free for the kids as well. You don't have to keep dipping in your pocket. You've made the money by being there, by being part of the event, blah, blah, blah. So this is what it's about. So I'm looking for 5 or 6 people to step forward and part with 50 quid. It costs you 50 quid to join in, but you can obviously get that back through sponsorship. So get 5 mates to give you a tenner each, job done. Great day out. Can you move on to that next slide? There you go. Now, when you see stuff like that, and you think, bloody hell, aren't we lucky? You know, that just doesn't happen to our kids. You know, that they're left in the middle of desolation. It's all gone. Everything in their world is gone. They lost, in that storm, the Yolanda, 100,000 boats, right? Fishing boats that they used to go out fishing to catch fish for the family and for the village. They do it on a village basis there. They have fishing boats. They go out to sea, they catch for the village, not just for themselves, bring it back in, feed everybody. They lost 100,000 boats. You think, Christ almighty, what's this all about? And I found that out because I went to look and find out why, this, you know, what we could do to help. Right? We'll sit here. I remember around the World Cup, the Football World Cup in Brazil, and all of the protests and the desolation that was going on in Brazil. And there was riots in Brazil and people were getting shot. And I asked people, I have a group on LinkedIn called the Business in Berkshire LinkedIn group, and I asked people on there why they thought this was occurring. And I got all these clever bloody consultants telling me that it was because of the way the society is in this place and that place, and you know, we're much more advanced, and we're much more this, and we're much more that. And I went then on to LinkedIn and I found a group called the Rotary International Groups. I'm part of Rotary. And I asked on there and I thought, well, let's get a different opinion. And it sort of shocked me, but then it was very logical. But I got responses from Brazil, from people in Brazil. And when they're telling you, you know, there's a guy sitting there with his photo, looks like me. Well, he's unlucky enough to look like me, but you know what I mean. His picture's on there. And you think, he's telling me that he's scared to walk down the bloody street because he might get a bullet on his way to work, and you think, ah, what's this all about? It's shocking. So I went back to that group and I asked, what can we do for the Philippines? What do they need in the Philippines? And 2 or 3 guys came back who ran Rotary clubs out there. And when I condensed it all down, it came down to boats. Right? And they needed boats because without the boats they can't feed the families. Simple. So last year, the Rotary Club gave me a few quid. The money we raised from the Dragon Boat meant that in total we bought 10 boats for the Philippines. Right, so we helped 10 villages feed themselves. And so when the guys asked me to join in this year's Dragon Boat, and they said, you know, what's it going to be for? And I thought, well, I'll go back to my boys in the Philippines and see what's going on. And so I asked the question, and they were going to do fridges, right? Because I thought, oh great, this ties up lovely. They're catching so many fish now that they need fridges to put them in. But that project is not happening. It's what did I say to you earlier, Mark and Paul? Bloody hell, I'd lose the angle of this. The bottom line is that project's melted. Right, the fridge is melted. Anyway, so what I did is I heard a presentation on Monday by a chap called Daniel Wallace, who I was hoping was going to be here to do the other part of the presentation. But if we bounce on a few slides here, right? So that's, yeah, so here, stop there. Nepal, Everest. We heard about it just recently, didn't we? Back end of April, that kicked in. And Daniel was on at Camp 1 on Everest when that earthquake hit. And you think, God, there by the grace of God. I mean, not that I've been to Everest, but you know what I mean? Stuff happens, and he said the ground, he's going to present it far better than me, obviously, because he was there. Look at this. The ground around them was just shaking, and there was nothing to get hold of. You don't know what you're going to do, and it's just keeping on going. Imagine that being, I mean, we go on these fun rides, don't we, and the floor gets all go wobbly, and we sort of giggle about it. But imagine that just going on and on and on. You just don't know what's going to happen. They thought where they were, it was going to be an avalanche, but it was less of an avalanche, it was more of a snow falling. But let's not worry about the detail, because he tells that story far better. The reality is that people die in these situations. Right? Sherpas are killed. And their economy is way different to our economy. They don't work in the same way. They don't have the same mindset. That's what it comes down to. With any of these things, in cultures, you have a different way of being. And the bottom line is, if a wife loses her husband in the mountains, look, this is how they live day to day. You know, there's no bloody TVs there and skyboxes and adverts coming at them. They're just, you know, living a very simple life, which, you know, is very appealing on many levels. But the bottom line is that when she lost her husband, she became a Sherpa, because there's no income coming in. But if you've got children, who's going to look after the kids while somebody's being a Sherpa, and blah, blah, blah. So what tends to happen, which shocked me initially, but it's logical when you think it through, is a wife or a woman whose husband's been killed will marry again. But then, rather than the new husband bringing in the families we tend to do in the West, out there, it's dog eat dog, there's 50% unemployment out there. I mean, one of the best jobs you can have is being a Sherpa. They basically ignore the kids. Imagine that. So there must be all these kids just fending for their bloody selves all the time out in these places. So the Juniper Trust has been set up by a couple of American people because of this situation. Because what will also happen, if money is just given to the families, the mother will take the money and she'll pay the lamas to give them blessings. So rather than using that for food, they, you know, it's just where the heads are set. So the Juniper Trust, when it does it, oh, that's a lot better, isn't it? I feel like warm. So what happens is that the Juniper Trust take the donations and then they feed it literally back to the families for what they need, and they'll educate. They, you know, make sure the kids have a proper education, because what these people want is nothing more than their kids to be educated so they can do a better job, so they can not have to be Sherpas. You know, it's this sort of thing going on. So when I heard that on Monday, I thought, right, there you go, that'll do the job. So this year's boat trip, we're going to raise, and the target is to raise £1,000 between us. £1,000 for the Juniper Trust to help the families of Nepal. I thank you.
That's it.
That's it.